Going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's PJ. We're back. John chapter 7. And some cool things going on in chapter 7. Some really, really great stuff. So I hope you guys take the time to read through it. The first thing I want to point out, which some of you may know, some of you may not, but in chapter 7, verse 2 through 4, um, Jesus is here, and it's talking about um, his brothers. And it says in verse 3, it says, "So his brothers said to him, 'Leave here and go to Judea, that your disciples also may see the works you are doing.'" These are Jesus' brothers. And a lot of people don't recognize or understand that, according to Scripture, Mary did have other sons after Jesus. And here it is, and it describes it. In verse 5, it says, "Not even his brothers believed in him." Isn't that crazy? Can you think about Jesus as a little kid? And in reference to chapter 6, where he says, "Truly, truly," like, could you imagine Jesus going, "Truly, truly, brothers, I say to you, Mom says it's time to come inside for dinner." I'm sorry, that's just a little joke. It was probably really, really corny, but I had to put it out there. All right, anyway, so that's enough of the brother thing. But just something there to, in case you didn't know, now you know. All right. Um, but one other part I want to talk to you, getting a little more serious now. I want to go to this part where Jesus says in verse 24, he says, "Do not judge by appearances, but judge with right judgment." What's happening here is his brothers are trying to urge him to go to the Feast of Booths. He doesn't want to go because he understands that the authorities, the Pharisees, the Sanhedrin, those guys, that they're out to get him, and they want to arrest him. Okay? And so he's saying he's not going to go. He's going to lay low and chill for a little bit, but he ends up going anyway. And he starts talking, and he's starting to teach in the synagogue again, and these guys are coming up against him, and they're telling him that he's demon possessed. Okay? And this is one of the many false accusations that the authorities are trying to put against Jesus, because they just don't like what he's doing. So right here, this accusation of demon possession is because of what we read about in John chapter 5, when Jesus heals the man at the pools. See, the problem they're having with that was that he did it on the Sabbath day. Okay? And Jesus is saying to them, it's really, really cool. He says, starting in verse 19, he says, "Has not Moses given you the law? Yet none of you keeps the law. Why do you seek to kill me?" The crowd answered, "You have a demon who is seeking to kill you." Jesus answered them, "I did one work, and you all marvel at it. Moses gave you circumcision, not that it is from Moses, but from the fathers, and you can circumcise a man on the Sabbath. If on the Sabbath a man receives circumcision so that the law of Moses may not be broken, are you angry with me because on the Sabbath I made a man whole his body well?" And then he says there in verse 24, "Do not judge by appearances, but judge with right judgment." Okay? These guys are calling him demon possessed because he healed someone, guys. All right? And you can see that their problems that they have are bigger than what Jesus is doing. They're completely dismissing his miracles. This is something that we talked about yesterday. And instead they're challenging him because he's challenging their way of life. See, when it comes to the Pharisees and Sanhedrin and the authorities, those guys like to look righteous without actually pursuing righteousness. They had all the head knowledge, but there was a disconnect between what was in their head and what was in their heart. Okay? So when we move down, speaking about heart, we're going to move down towards verses 37 through 39, and I'm going to read that to you. It says, "On the last day of the feast, the great day, Jesus stood up and cried out, 'If anyone thirsts, let him come to me and drink. Whoever believes in me, as the scripture has said, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water.' Now this he said about the Spirit, whom those who believed in him were to receive. For as yet the Spirit had not been given, because Jesus was not yet glorified, meaning he wasn't killed and resurrected yet. Okay? And so some really, really important points that I want to talk to you about this particular part, because it really goes back to what we're talking about the Pharisees and the Sanhedrin at the time. Like I said, these guys had a head full of knowledge, but what was lacking was the connection to their heart. And out of the heart, Jesus said, should flow rivers of living water, the Spirit. Okay? A lot of people are used to doing church or being church without living church. So what that means is they're used to the tradition, they're used to the actions, they're used to the motions, they're used to being what people expect them to be. I'm very, very fond of telling my students that wherever you go, someone is watching you. That doesn't mean you're supposed to pretend to be something in certain places and then be who you really want to be in certain other places, around your friends or in school, and then you get home and then you're a different person. You're supposed to be the same person throughout. No matter what kind of scenario or what kind of atmosphere people should find you in, you should be the same person. And what should flow out of that person should be the basic fruits of the Spirit. And if you don't know what the fruits of the Spirit are, you got to go to Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 and 23. But I'm going to read out the list for you, okay? The fruits of the Spirit are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Now let's be honest, we're all facing times that we've never faced before. This quarantine is driving some people absolutely batty. If you are out and about, you notice that some people are being really, really nice, and some people aren't. Even at home, you find people might be bickering with each other, siblings, parents, everybody's getting tired of being around each other, and it's a very, very tense time. But what God is saying right here is that regardless of your circumstance, regardless of whether people are watching you or not, how are your fruits of the Spirit holding up? Is living water flowing out of your heart, or is it blocked up somewhere? Again, I'm a firm believer that this is happening, this time we're coming across this season, because God is requiring something of each of us. Today, we get to think about these fruits of the Spirit. Are they continuing to flow out of us like living water, even though we're facing a time that's very, very uncertain and very, very unsure? Are we blocking it off? It's something to think about. If you know, you know. Love you guys. See you next time.